Hello, African Confessions. I am back with another episode. There is a message that I want to share with you guys, and the message reads like this. Hello, how are you? In the previous episode, I wrote about meeting a friend of mine, and the person that I had gone to pick up from the airport was a pastor who is just a fake pastor as I was. Let me just go back a little bit and tell you about this friend of mine. Let me say that birds of the same feathers flock together. Maybe I can try to deny the person that I had become, but little by little I had become just like the other members of our cult. There was no longer any truth that could be found in me. I am sure the presence of the Lord had finally left me too. This man, I will call him Pastor M. He was a few years older and he had become a very good friend of mine, but in the dark world. On that particular day that I had gone and picked him from the airport, he was coming straight from India because there was a recent sacrifice that he was supposed to do and a ritual to perform there in India. This story is a little bit different from mine, but more the same, a little bit similar in that he made a sacrifice, but on his case, he was fully aware of what he was doing. So going to India was to look for more powers and for more strength. It's really painful how people leave the presence of the Lord, knowing exactly where to get his strength, but travel from one continent to another continent to have a power that would look like of the Lord, while all of it is just fake. How he made the sacrifice is that he was married to a very beautiful wife, and that was the time when I was still going around, when I was still clean. I used to go and preach to a lot of people, and whenever I would see his flyers in the streets on the billboards, I thought that he was the perfect man of God, and there was something about his wife. He really had an angel of a wife, and they had 3 children. He started his ministry just like most of them. He loved the community. He had built a very small school, but for the less privileged. Him and his wife, they used to run a soup kitchen at that small school. So a lot of homeless people, they would go there to his kitchen soup to get something to eat once a day. He was well known, and even up until today, he is a well-man known in the community. The whole community looks up to him, but people don't even know that behind him there is a dark spirit, a bigger demon than the demons that were offered to me. His wife was expecting, and they were so excited, according to him, because they had stayed for so many years without a child. He told me that the reason why they didn't have a baby, it was because at that time he had already gone around looking for some ritual, some powers, so that he can further his ministry. He wanted those powers to perform big miracles because he kept on complaining that no matter how hard he would try to make people come to church, no one was coming. The only reason why people would come to his church, if on a Sunday he will say that the soup kitchen today will not be at his school but at church, then a lot of people would flock to his church so that they can just eat. But all along, he was using money straight from his pockets. He was almost going broke, and there was no money that was flowing back to the church. That is why he started visiting a lot of local traditional healers to find a way to make people donate to the church so that he can complete with his good works that he was doing in the community. He was not allowed to have a child or to sleep on the same bed with her wife. He was only allowed to be with his wife and be husband and wife once a month, but using protection. The wife was not aware of what was happening. All of this was being done for fame and money. It was his secret. I also admired his work at that time. Whenever I would see his billboard, then I'll start praying and asking God to give me some of the glory that he had poured upon his servant. If I was fasting on that day and if I was feeling hungry, whenever I would come across his flyer in the street, inviting people to his local church, then the hunger that I'll be feeling will just disappear. Then I'll start worshiping the Lord as I was going around the taxi rank or preaching in the street. He was the one who was helping the needy in the community, and I wanted to be like him. I only discovered that this was no man of God the very first day when I entered into this cult, and I was told that he was also involved in this cult. All that I knew is that this pastor was a perfect picture of a man of God. Yet inside, that beautiful wife that we saw on the posters, she was someone who was suffering and suffocating inside. He then told me that she got pregnant only one night. He then told me that she got pregnant only one night when she suggested to help him to put on the condom. All those years he had lied to her that he was suffering from this STI, but the lady, I think she had investigated till she found out that all of this was just a lie. That is how she tricked him. On that night, she tore the condom and she got pregnant. But in actual case, even though I didn't know everything that was going on behind the closed door, their ministry is what made me to join and have the love of the Lord, because I kept on following that pastor's path. He was my inspiration. She invited all of her friends for dinner, and he told me that it was a beautiful candle-lit event, and those that came, they came with partners. And after dinner, that is when he was surprised, because she stood up and announced that finally God had blessed them with a baby. They were all surprised, and her friends then stood up. This pastor friend of mine told me that when they were having dinner and when she stood up to announce that finally God had blessed them with a baby, he stood up and rushed to the bathroom and he started crying whilst he was in the bathroom. His wife was not supposed to fall pregnant, otherwise she was going to die. After he had found out that his wife had fallen pregnant, that is when he visited another powerful traditional healer who was very expensive. At that time, he told me that he didn't have enough cash to go and consult with that expensive traditional healer, but left with no option, he sold his only car so that he can pay for the consultation fee. When he went there, that is when he was given the contact of the person who ended up helping him in India. That same powerful witch doctor is the one who bought an air ticket for him so that he can fly to India. He told me that a few days later, after he had had a consultation with that powerful witch doctor, he then flew to India. Like I said, I didn't know what was happening. I just thought that this was a powerful man of God. And the time that he went to India, I even saw some flyers, and on those flyers they were written that he was going to India first, then he would pass through Israel so that he can pray for the people. But when I asked him about those flyers, he started to laugh and he said, no, the only reason why I put out all of those flyers, it was because I needed some donations, because I knew that I didn't have any money at that time, because that witch doctor had bought for me the tickets, but he didn't give me any money at all. So I was broke. That is why I put out those flyers. And when I was in India, after we had performed the rituals, that is when I started receiving a lot of donations. From those donations, I flew from India. Then I went to Israel and I pretended as if I was praying for the people back home. After he had told me his story, that is when I decided that I had to go to India. I didn't want to lose my mind. I wanted to enjoy my life. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was forwarded to me by our dear brother. Quite an interesting story. Please let us meet again in the following episode.